Hello everyone, I'm here today to do another video for my Read Around the World project, and this time I'm going to talk about the Caribbean. So I have already done North America and Central America. I will leave those videos down below, but now I want to focus on the Caribbean and more specifically the northern islands of the Caribbean, because the Caribbean has quite a lot of countries, so I thought it would be too much to do everything in one video. So the countries I'm going to focus on are Bahamas, Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, and Dominican Republic. So yeah, let's get started. So for Bahamas, I read An Evening in Guamina by Patricia Glinton-Meicholas. And there are a couple of other books that I was interested in, but this one was the one that was easiest to access for me. And it's a collection of sort of folk tales, short stories about the island. And I am not particularly interested in short stories or folktales, but it was what was available to me, so that's what I read. And I appreciated especially the folklore elements of this collection, the magical connections between animals and people, especially. But overall, I always find really difficult to connect to any of the characters when it's a short story or a folk tale. I never have quite enough to connect. There was also some humor in the collection, which I appreciated. But yeah, overall it was okay for me. If you have any recommendations of novels from the Bahamas, especially if they are relatively easier to access, I would love to know, because I want to read more. It's just, yeah, this format doesn't particularly gel with me. Then for Cuba, I have several books to talk about, but sadly all of the books I've read from Cuba are from the diaspora perspective, and that's kind of, when I was looking at this, it was weird to me that it was that way, because I feel like I have quite a knowledge about the Cuban culture. I have been in Cuba, I have watched several Cuban movies growing up. Some of them, like my parents, watch Cuban movies relatively often, so I do have some sense of Cuban culture, and it was surprising to me that I actually have not read many books from Cuba, but that's what it is. So the first one I've read is Of Women and Salt by Gabriela Garcia, and this is about a woman in Miami that has quite a messed up past and a Cuban descent, and she kind of takes care of this girl that her parents are from Mexico and they have been deported, so she's alone, and this Cuban woman decides to take care of her. And I just found it very simplified and not about Cuba at all, but also, like, the story itself, it was quite simple. So yeah, it was just an okay book. Then another one that I read is a middle grade actually, and it's Lucky Broken Girl by Ruth Behar, and it's about this girl that also has Cuban descent, and she's in a car accident and she's bedridden for a really long time, like almost a year. So her relationship with her mother that takes care of her gets really, really bad, because she cannot move, she cannot do anything by herself, she cannot see her friends, and her mom is also feeling that she always has to be there for her, so it's very strenuous for both of them. I guess as a middle grade it was fine, but yeah, I didn't do anything particularly special. And then the last one I have to talk about, it's the one I enjoyed the most for all of these books, and it's My Time Among the Whites by Jennine Capo Crucet. This is a memoir of Jennine, who lives, I think she's from Miami and Cuban descent, white Cuban descent, and she talks a lot about how she's treated as opposed to let's say Mexicans or South American, Central American people. So like the Latinx community, let's say, she's treated differently because she's Cuban, and at the time that her parents moved to the US, Cubans were welcome because they were running away from communism, so the US wanted to make clear that they were against communism, so they were accepting a lot of these people without a lot of fuss, and because she's white, looking white passing, or white, just white, she she does have a different treatment from other Latinx communities, and she does talk a lot about how she doesn't quite identify with the Latinx community, but also she doesn't consider herself white. So it is a little bit of all that experience of being Cuba in the US, and I thought it was very well done. She has a lot of very smart observations, and I enjoyed it. But again, it's just a diaspora book, and I would also like some book from Cuba itself. There are a couple that I have seen and I'm interested in. One is Dreaming in Cuban by Cristina Garcia, and the other one is Havana Year Zero by Karla Suarez. They both sounded very interesting, but if you have other recommendations, let me know as well. Then for Jamaica, I have read quite a few books for three different authors, basically. The first author is Nicole Dennis-Benn, and I have read from her Here Comes the Sun and Patsy. So Here Comes the Sun is about a family of a mom and two daughters, and we see it mostly from the perspective of the older daughter, who works in the hotel industry in Jamaica and is trying to make money so that she can pay her sister's education, because her mom is not able to work to make a lot of money. And it has a lot of commentary about race and the poverty versus the vacation sites kind of discussion, the gentrification. All of that is very, very present in this book. I really enjoyed it, and I thought that I learned a lot about Jamaica and the dynamics there with this book. Patsy, on the other hand, it's about this Jamaican woman that leaves her daughter in Jamaica and goes to the US because this other woman that she's in love with moved to the US. And it's about how difficult it was for her to move to the US, about how difficult it is for her daughter to understand why she would ever abandon her, and what it is to be an immigrant in the US as a Jamaican. I like that less, partly because Patsy is a very unlikable character, partly because it was not so much about Jamaica and the issues that it explores. I mean, it does explore issues, especially LGBTQ plus issues, but I thought it was more limited in the depth and the scope. So that's why I prefer Here Comes the Sun, and I will recommend that one more over Patsy. The second author that I have read from Jamaica, I wholly recommend. It's Ket Miller. The first book that I read from him was Augustown, and that was one of my favorite books of that year. So Augustown is about a girl in Jamaica and an old woman as well that is, like, I think the grandmother or something. And there is two timelines. One is in the 80s and one is in present time, and we see sort of how the race dynamics but also the Rastafarian dynamics work in Jamaica, and how most people perceive these people in Jamaica. And it was really well done. The writing style is it feels like it's very crafted without being on your face or being like overly done. I really enjoyed his writing style, and I would recommend this book to everybody. And then the other one that I read from Ket Miller is Things I Have Withheld, which is an essay collection that has come out, I think, this year or last year. And it talks again a lot about race dynamics, but also about Pan-Africanism and Rastafarian culture and a lot of other elements of it's not just, it has race but in a more nuanced way. It's not just blacks against whites. There is like Caribbeans and there's Africans and there is African Americans and all of these different European black people. There's all these different source of Black people, and he goes into the nuances of all of these things, and I thought it was really well done, and a lot more thoughtful than other books about race that I have read. So yeah, Ket Miller is becoming one of those authors for me that it's like if I see something about from him, I want to read it. So yeah, highly recommend. And then the last author that I have read from Jamaica is Marlon James, and I have read A Brief History of Seven Killings and Black Leopard Red Wolf from him. And Marlon James has a writing style that is very challenging. If you want something to take you out of your comfort zone, I will say Marlon James probably does that. A Brief History of Seven Killings is about the attempted assassination of Bob Marley. And Black Leopard Red Wolf is a fantasy book about, well, based on African mythology. So they are two very different books, but they have a lot of common elements in the writing. I think the writing is the main thing of these books rather than the story. Partly because the writing overpowers the story in a lot of these books. It is a very, the writing kind of goes in circles, not necessarily in a bad way, but just goes in circles over the things and jumps from one thing to the other in a way that sometimes feels a bit jarring or a bit challenging, but it is very it's done on purpose. It's not a thing that the author doesn't control. I felt like the author controlled that. It was just like sometimes he did that so much that it lost me on the way. And yeah, so it is a very challenging book, and I'm not sure I can say I enjoy these books. I think I enjoy Black Leopard Red Wolf more, but that might also be because I listen to that in audiobook, and the audiobook has different voices for different characters, and that made it a little bit easier for me to follow the story. But yeah, it is not a book that you can easily understand, but it is, there's value in them for sure, and I am really happy that I've read them and I challenged myself. And I think that they are those kind of books that make you grow as a reader, that you don't necessarily enjoy, but you do grow as a reader because you read them. And so yeah, I am hesitant to recommend Marlon James because of that, but at the same time I think it is a worthy author to talk about. Then for Haiti, I have read An Untamed State by Roxane Gay. Roxane Gay is of Haitian descent. I don't know for sure if she was born in Haiti, but I think she was. An Untamed State is about Haiti. So it is about this Haitian woman that lives in the US, and she goes back to Haiti for a family gathering, and when she is in Haiti she is kidnapped, which apparently is something that is relatively common in Haiti, that people from either that live outside Haiti or are known to be rich are kidnapped for money. The kidnappers ask their family for money. And I liked about this book is that it didn't just focus on the kidnap. So that is kind of half of the book, and then we also see the consequences of the kidnapping on this woman. So I like that it was not just like, oh, she was kidnapped and then she was saved and we are all happy and that's it. After she was saved and she went back to her life, she found it really difficult to go back to her life. She was not able to be intimate in any way, like emotionally, physically, anything with her husband for a really long time, because she had lost the trust in humankind in a way. And I really enjoyed that we explored that part of it, and it's not just an experience and then you move on. It is something that marks you for the rest of your life, and you have to constantly for the rest of your life work on. And I loved how this book showed that. With that said, if you have recommendations for Haitian books, I would love to know, because although this one was a very interesting exploration of a certain topic, I think it was also really dark, and I would like to have something a little bit more, not light, but more representative of Haiti. I'm sure that Haiti is not just kidnapping and dark stuff. So if you have any other books that you would recommend from Haiti, let me know, because I will love to know. And then for the Dominican Republic, I have read 3 books. The first one is The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wao by Junot Diaz, and this is a book about Oscar, who is a overweight teenager that wants to be a writer, and about his family, his relationship with his family and other people, and his life as a Dominican in the US. And to be honest, I read this a few years ago and I don't remember a lot about it, so that's probably not a good sign. I don't think it's particularly anything that I would recommend, to be honest. Then the other one that I have read is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acebedo. And Elizabeth Acebedo is a YA poetry inclined writer. And this one in particular is about a young mother that is in high school and wants to be a cook and wants to go to this very prestigious cooking program, and all the hardships that she has to have, and all the extra considerations that she has to have compared to all of her classmates. So the fact that she has a daughter means that she has to make money, that she cannot waste money, she doesn't have a lot of money, but also like this program is in Spain and she has to leave her daughter with someone for a certain amount of time, and that's all issues that she has to consider, and we see that in the book. It's a very positive book and I enjoyed it when I read it. I don't think it's I read it as an adult and it's a YA, so I think I would have liked it a lot more when I was younger. And it's not one of those books that translates to adults as well. Like it's good, but it's not as impactful. But I think that for teenagers it's a very well done book. And then the last one that I read is Dominicana by Angie Cruz, and Dominicana is about this 16-year-old girl that is married off to another man that lives in the US. So she moves to the US as well with this man, and it's very difficult for her to leave everything behind, and also she's not expected to work, she doesn't have a job, she doesn't have anything to do other than getting pregnant, and she's not getting pregnant. So there are all these issues. Also her husband becomes abusive at some point, and her life is very hard in the US, but she has to move through because her whole family's destiny depends on it, kind of. And I thought it was a bit like trauma porn, extra dramatic. I don't know, like it focused a lot on the surface drama rather than the deeper things. So yeah, it was okay. It was okay. It was not amazing, I would say. But yeah, those are the books that I read from Dominican Republic. Let me know if you have read any of them, if you have recommendations. Also, if you want recommendations, Pita from Comfy Cozy App and Karen from Run Right Reads are two YouTubers from Jamaica that have amazing recommendations about the area. They host Caribathon, which encourages people to read literature from the Caribbean, and they're amazing. So if you want more recommendations, go to them, not to me, because these are just things I've read, but they are a lot more knowledgeable on the topic. So yeah, I will link those channels down below as well. And yeah, let me know if you have any recommendations for me, and until next video, bye!